The 1930s, a decade defined by economic collapse and a profound shift in national identity. For many, the Great Depression fueled a virulent anti-immigrant sentiment. This period saw the Mexican repatriation, a government-backed campaign that deported over 80,000 individuals, many of whom were legal residents, or, critically, American citizens by birth. Among those caught in this upheaval were Sebastian and Maria Arroyo Mendez. They had fled the Mexican Revolution of 1910, seeking stability and agricultural work in Texas. Their youngest son, Gilberto, known as Gil, was born an American in San Antonio. Yet, despite his birthright, Gilberto was forcibly relocated to Mexico with his family during the repatriation. Life there was starkly different. Then, in May of 1942, Mexico itself declared war on the Axis powers. Conscription followed for Mexican citizens. Gilberto, feeling a moral obligation, was drafted into the Mexican army. It was a small force, but its training was tough, highly professional, and instilled a discipline that would serve Gilberto well. He even marched in the Mexican Independence Day parade in Mexico City in September 1942. But Gilberto's American citizenship still tethered him to his birth nation. After his discharge from the Mexican Army on Christmas Day, 1942, the USS Beck, and from the Mexican Army on Christmas Day, Draft Board issued an ultimatum: return and register, or face the revocation of his citizenship. For Gilberto Mendez, the choice was clear. On March 31, 1943, he reported to the U.S. Induction Center. A recruiter's words resonated with him. The Marine Corps, which is the infantry of the Navy, he joined. His Marine training was rigorous. First, boot camp, then the specialized line camp. He was being prepared for a different kind of war. The idea of a singular, homogeneous American fighting force was challenged by men like Gilberto. Multi-ethnic, with complex, often painful backgrounds, they were ready to fight for a nation that had, in some ways, cast them out. By February 1945, Gilberto Mendez was among the replacements desperately needed on the front lines of Iwo Jima. This volcanic island became a crucible, 36 days of pure hell. The amphibious landings relied on Higgins landing boats, vulnerable craft that took direct hits. Going sky high, Gilberto's unit faced brutal opposition. The Japanese had constructed a network of fortifications, including the infamous meat grinder bunker. He soon found himself in the thick of a banzai charge. Amidst the frantic shouts of "Banzai! Banzai!" Gilberto engaged the enemy. His ingrained discipline held. He achieved confirmed kills, but the ferocity of the combat took its toll. He sustained 13 holes in his body. Shrapnel embedded in a pick shovel on his back marked a near-fatal miss from mortar fire. A concussion left him choking on his own tongue. On February 28, 1945, Gilberto woke on a hospital ship bound for Hawaii. He had survived. In November 1945, Gilberto Mendez received his honorable discharge. His service, a profound act of personal redemption and sacrifice, reclaimed his American identity. Meanwhile, the Pacific Theater was a vast, unforgiving arena where total war permeated every role. Frank Canny, a 34-year-old postal worker from the United States, enlisted in 1943. He served not as a frontline infantryman, but as an Army mail handler. He later became an assistant gunner on LST-741, a troop carrier ship involved in critical convoy operations. His story challenges the myth that support personnel were inherently safe. In the Pacific, supply lines and rear areas could quickly become front lines. On October 20, 1944, Allied forces invaded the Philippine Islands at Leyte Gulf. Frank Canny's unit hit the beach in Leyte on October 25. His postal unit, the Army Post Office, was set up in a Chinese-owned rice warehouse in Tacloban. A pivotal moment came on December 19, 1944. Frank Canny's convoy, comprising 20 vessels in total, plus 11 destroyers, set sail. Just 2 days later, on December 21st, Japanese Zeros attacked. The Liberty ship Marcus Daly was hit by Japanese bombs. Then, LST-460, a ship in his convoy, was struck by a kamikaze attack. The vessel exploded with catastrophic force. It seemed like a madman's 4th of July celebration, Canny recalled. Hundreds of sailors and soldiers were forced to leap overboard. Frank Canny, loading ammunition for a .50 cal anti-aircraft gun, was thrust into the direct carnage of naval combat. His ship, LSD 741, shifted immediately from combat posture to rescue operations, signaled by a mercy flag. This attack represented his brutal introduction to the immediate threat of death, a stark reminder of the pervasive nature of modern warfare and the often overlooked yet vital roles played by individuals in support and logistical positions. The narratives of Gilberto Mendez and Frank Canny underscore a vital truth. World War II was fought by a diverse tapestry of individuals with complex loyalties and profound personal sacrifices. Their experiences redefine simplistic notions of citizenship and highlight the immense resilience required when facing the horrors of total war. The perils of the Pacific were not confined to any single battle. The very act of moving men and material was fraught with danger. Frank Caney's experiences during the Mindoro campaign further reveal the brutal realities and critical oversights of wartime logistics. After the devastating attack on his convoy in December 1944, Canny's LST 741 became a rescue vessel. Wounded soldiers were tied to the strongest swimmers for evacuation. It was here a stark disparity emerged. Sailors wore kapok life jackets equipped with tiny lights, blinker lights essential for nighttime rescues. Army personnel, however, lacked these crucial signal lights, raising grave concerns for potentially higher casualties during the dark hours. This critical detail subtly debunks the myth of uniform preparedness and seamless execution in wartime, revealing significant operational oversights. Landfall at Mindoro came on December 22nd with the Western Visayan Task Force. Canny was stationed at the 24th Infantry Division's APO in San Jose. But even on land, safety was an illusion. Japanese bases north of us launched relentless day and night bombings. The skies, however, were increasingly contested. Allied air support included the formidable presence of B-24, Liberators, P-47 Thunderbolts, P-51 Mustangs, P-38 Lightnings, and P-61 Black Widows for night operations, alongside U.S. Marine F-4U Corsairs. A Japanese naval task force, comprising a cruiser and 2 destroyers, was detected on December 26, but the tide of naval conflict was turning. American PT boats were credited with crippling the Japanese destroyers and damaging the cruiser, a decisive intervention that saved Allied landing forces. The Mindoro campaign, despite heavy sea losses, ultimately cleared the way for the invasion of Luzon and signaled Allied air superiority in the region. The cost, however, was evident in the temporary Allied cemetery, a somber testament to men lost during convoy battles, bombings, and shellfire. Thousands of miles away, in the European theatre, the challenges of total war were manifesting in different but equally brutal forms. Avis Daggett Shora, commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army Nurse Corps on March 17, 1942, found herself at the forefront of medical support. Her unit, the 56th Evacuation Hospital, was an impressive force: 48 direct commissioned doctors, 49 nurses, and 310 enlisted medics. It was described as a self-contained and self-sufficient unit, a mobile lifeline for the wounded. Their journey began at Camp Chaffee, Arkansas, a facility that rapidly grew from scattered buildings to accommodate 100,000 troops and a 1,000 bed capacity. In the spring of 1943, they landed at Casablanca during the chase of Rommel across North Africa. An arduous 8-day truck convoy trip to the front followed, subsisting on sea rations and a mere quart of water every day. In Tunisia, they set up in Bizerte, an old French colonial garrison. Early casualties included malaria victims treated with atabrine. The campaign moved to Italy, landing at Salerno. Fatu, Italy established, have the campaign boat, Majorit Hofer Fatu, and Virius. Then pushing to Avellino. Their tents were overflowing with the wounded. Winter brought constant rain, mud, leaking tents, and a surge in trench foot casualties. But it was the Anzio invasion that truly tested their resilience. Boarding a British LCI at night, they endured miserable conditions and vicious seas. The Anzio beachhead was a killing field, and the hospital, due to its proximity to fuel dumps, ammo dumps, and motor pools, became a prime target. The Anzio Express, a German long-range gun, delivered shells with a distinct screeching sound. Tragically, 6 fellow nurses were killed on Anzio Beach. Even German propaganda via Axis Sally, a DJ playing music and hinting at the unit's relief, became part of their grim daily reality. They endured a grueling 76 days on the Anzio beachhead. Later, they faced the horrors of the casino front and the Battle of Monte Cassino, navigating battlefields riddled with landmines, including the infamous Bouncing Bettys. In 25 months in theatre, the 56th Evacuation Hospital treated more than 73,000 patients. Avis Daggett Shora's experiences, later chronicled in her book, A Half-Acre of Hell, powerfully demonstrate that medical personnel faced constant danger, exhaustion, and profound emotional trauma, challenging the myth that only frontline combat soldiers experienced the brunt of war. Back in the Pacific, an earlier, equally brutal chapter had already unfolded. Guadalcanal, a name synonymous with the crucible of early island warfare, marked a crucial turning point, halting Japanese expansion and initiating the long, costly road to Tokyo. Bob Johnson, a defensive tackle for the University of Minnesota's 1937 national championship team, joined the Marines alongside future Governor Orville Freeman. After officer candidate school at Quantico, Virginia, he became the executive officer of an artillery battery in the 10th Marine Regiment, 2 days Marine Division. His unit relied on the Pack howitzer, a 75 mm cannon that could be disassembled and moved by sheer hard work. Their voyage to the South Pacific in August 1942 was unexported aboard a commercial sea liner, a testament to the desperate and often under-resourced nature of early war efforts. Operation Watchtower, dubbed Operation Shoestring, saw the 1st Marine Division land with initially no air support or sea support, exposed to constant enemy attacks. They captured an airfield by August 20th. The Japanese, however, were resolute. A 1,000-man enemy task force landed at Taivu Point. The ensuing Battle of Bloody Ridge was fierce. By November 1942, the 2 days Marine Division, including Bob Johnson, landed to relieve the exhausted troops. But even their tactical tools were flawed. Maps were so bad, Johnson recalled, we couldn't use them. This slack training and poor intelligence left American troops disoriented and disconnected. Food shortages were constant. One cook reportedly tossed a hand grenade to gather fish. Marines scavenged barrels of rice from Japanese ships. The environment itself was lethal. More Marines died from malaria than from enemy fire. And then came the Banzai attack. Japanese soldiers charging en masse, yelling Banzai, a desperate tactic, demonstrating a willingness to inflict and endure extreme casualties. Guadalcanal was a baptism of fire, a raw demonstration of the horrors of total war, where fundamental logistical and intelligence failures contributed to the immense human cost. The relentless nature of combat on Guadalcanal demanded extraordinary courage from ordinary men. When the Japanese launched their ferocious Banzai attacks, artillerymen, including Bob Johnson, were forced to lower their gun tubes and fire their howitzers directly into the advancing enemy lines. After one such assault, approximately 300 Japanese soldiers lay dead. The skies over Guadalcanal also brought their own terror, with the distinctive put of Washing Machine Charlie and the unseen menace of Pistol Pete, nicknames for Japanese aircraft that haunted the nights. One day, Bob Johnson's Jeep was destroyed by a bomb, blowing out his eardrum. He witnessed the profound cost of this brutal campaign, evidenced in the seemingly endless rows of white crosses at Guadalcanal's memorial. His journey continued through other pivotal Pacific battles. On Tarawa, Marines faced disaster, wading through neck-high water due to miscalculated tides, making them easy targets. On Saipan, Bob's Amtrak took a direct hit, leaving him bleeding significantly from his arm. Upon exiting the damaged vehicle, he immediately encountered a Japanese soldier armed with a grenade, a stark illustration of the constant, unrelenting threat. He suffered further, shrapnel lodging in the cranial nerve of his neck. These experiences, of multiple near-death encounters and the tragic loss of friends, profoundly shaped Bob Johnson. His resilience and commitment to service would later define his distinguished legal career, a testament to the enduring impact of the battlefield on one man's life perspective. His story challenges the idea of soldiers being fearless, revealing moments of intense fear and self-preservation, but ultimately, an unwavering resolve. Thousands of miles away, In the European theatre, another man's courage would become legend. In September 1943, the Allies invaded Italy. The Gulf of Salerno was a key objective, but German forces, anticipating an Allied move, had turned it into a heavily defended stronghold. The perceived Italian surrender had created a false sense of security, leading the Allies to underestimate German preparedness. This was the crucible for Charles Kelly, of L Company 3 Days Battalion, 143 Days Infantry Regiment, 36th Infantry Division. During the intense fighting at Salerno, Charles Kelly became separated from his unit, thrust into a solo, life-or-death struggle. He soon discovered that the seemingly friendly town of Altavilla was in fact a German trap. Here, in the mayor's house which became a fortress arsenal, Kelly made his stand. He single-handedly engaged multiple German positions, claiming to have killed 40 Germans within 20 minutes. Manning machine guns, rifles, and an anti-tank gun, he mounted a virtual single-handed defense of an ammunition dump. German Panzer IV tanks were a constant armored threat. Kelly's weapon of choice was the Browning automatic rifle, the BA, but the intensity of his defense was such that he burned out 2 BARs and a Thompson submachine gun. He deployed a bazooka and even attempted to use a box of dynamite, though critically, without caps or fuses, and an incendiary device. In a remarkable act of improvisation, he targeted Germans with a 60 mortar shell by tapping its fuse on the window ledge. The Germans, jamming Allied radios, created a profound sense of isolation until Kelly's rediscovery of a handset phone radio re-established a vital link. His heroic actions earned him the Medal of Honor and cemented his legendary status as Commando Kelly. However, his story also serves as a powerful challenge to the myth that heroic actions in war automatically translate to a stable and successful civilian life. Kelly's post-war years would be marked by bad luck, ill health, and financial misfortune, a poignant contrast to his battlefield glory, and a reminder that duty often overshadows personal glory. The story of Charles Commando Kelly is a poignant, often tragic, illustration of the profound disconnect between heroic battlefield actions and the harsh realities of post-war civilian life. On September 13, 1943, he earned the Congressional Medal of Honor, the first awarded to a soldier in the European theater. He became a public figure, touring the US T3, touring the US Jones. As part of the Army Ground Forces, here's your infantry demonstration team, a PR dog and pony show to sell war bonds. He was assigned to the infantry school at Fort Benning, Georgia, before receiving an honorable discharge as a technical sergeant in the summer of 1945. Yet the crucible of war, including witnessing extreme violence and the loss of comrades, can manifest in long-term struggles with mental health, substance abuse, and social reintegration. Kelly's post-war life became a downward spiral. In 1946, he opened a service station in Pittsburgh, but sold it the following year after a robbery and a downturn in business. His first wife, May, was diagnosed with cancer in 1947 and died in 1951. Radiation treatments drove the Kellys into foreclosure, forcing them to lose their home. He took odd jobs: security guard, house painter, construction worker. In 1952, he assisted General Dwight D. Eisenhower on the campaign trail, and 6 weeks later married Mrs. Weeks, Betty Gaskins. But the struggles continued. Unemployment plagued him as he faced numerous rejections for jobs. His plight as a Medal of Honor recipient became a media sensation, generating donations and over 100 job offers. Yet, he quit a job with a scrap iron company in St. Louis before moving his family. Eventually, Governor A.B. Happy Chandler arranged a position as an inspector in the State Highway Department, paying $340 a month. However, in April 1961, he called his wife from Cuba, declaring he was going to fight Fidel Castro. He was divorced in absentia in 1962. He resurfaced on the East Coast, only to be involved in an auto accident in Washington, D.C., hospitalized for nearly a year with a fractured skull and broken legs. In 1984, he was found at a VA hospital in Pittsburgh, his kidneys and liver failing. On January 11, 1985, at the age of 64, Charles Kelly facilitated his own death by pulling treatment tubes. He was buried at Highwood Cemetery in Pittsburgh. The whereabouts of his medals remain unknown. Kelly's life serves as a profound example of the forgotten veteran, underscoring a societal failure to adequately support those who served, leading to immense personal suffering for many. The immense life-or-death pressures of combat forge a unique mindset focused on immediate survival. This reality is vividly captured in the experiences of Charlie Haug, a replacement soldier who joined the European front in the late stages of the war. Enlisting on February 19, 1943, Haug completed basic training at Camp Walter, Texas. On September 12, 1944, he departed the U.S. aboard a troop carrier, one of 4,000 replacements headed for Europe. He landed at Omaha Beach at the end of September 1944, a stark landscape of wrecked ships and landing barges. On November 11, 1944, Veterans Day, Charlie Haug arrived at the front lines near the German-Belgian border. He was assigned to Company B, 112th Regiment, 28th Infantry Division, known as the Keystone Division, but grimly nicknamed the Bloody Bucket. His unit had suffered over 6,000 casualties in the brutal Hurtgen Forest. The survivors of Company B were a pitiful sight. Few men left after 8 constant days of attack. Haug was assigned as a platoon runner, a messenger role that placed him directly in harm's way. They moved into Luxembourg, facing the formidable Siegfried Line and its well-constructed pillboxes. Haug shared a foxhole with 2 other runners, using straw for comfort and burning bark for warmth. Meals were served only during the cover of darkness, 9 p.m. and 4 a.m. In December, they moved into Lutzkampen, Germany. He carried a dead comrade's body after a German patrol incident, his pants soaked in blood. Trench foot was a persistent problem. Troops were issued new socks and overshoes 2 sizes too big. Then, on December 16, 1944, at 5:10 a.m., the Battle of the Bulge began. German flares and artillery lit the pre-dawn sky. German infantry advanced on Lutzkampen shortly after 6 a.m. 2 American outposts were quickly overrun. The Germans initiated counter-battery fire. By 7:30 a.m., Germans were less than 100 yards away, screaming and yelling, their bullets off and tracers. Company B's company commander and 2 medics were killed in action. By 10 a.m., Germans began surrendering. Many were young, some as young as 14 to 18 years old. The Germans lost 135 men in the opening firefight. Company B, reduced to 90 surviving men, was spread over a mile-long front. Later that evening, the Germans renewed their assault with half a dozen panzers, including a Flammpanzer 38, a flame-throwing tank. The 1st Panzer came within 50 feet of an outpost, incinerating 2 GIs. An anti-tank gun from a sister unit destroyed 4 panzers, saving Charlie and others. Of the 90 men in Company B, only 18 survived. Charlie and Ken Jenny were ordered to contact artillery, but communication lines were down. They discovered the forward observers' outpost abandoned, the men evidently captured. Crossing an open field, they faced grazing gunfire and the roar of a panzer. They reached the firebase of the 229th Field Artillery, only to find the battalion had run out of ammunition. They crossed a river and found a Belgian farmhouse, where occupants warned them of thousands of German troops. A convoy of jeeps was intercepted by a German patrol. Frankie Giordano and Warren Quimby were captured. Warren Quimby, who was missing a leg, was shot and killed by a German. By December 18th, soldiers were exhausted and hungry. Some hadn't eaten for 3 days. On Christmas Eve, they found a river nearly 100 yards wide. They crossed it amidst American mortar shelling passing overhead. By December 19th, snow was falling. They dug in and repelled German attacks on the 20th and 21st. They had retreated approximately 30 miles since the first day of the attack. 2 comrades, desperate, shot themselves in the foot to get sent home. Haug was selected to stand guard at a crossroads when an American M3 half-track carrying German troops zoomed by, followed by a convoy of enemy trucks. 2 of Charlie's friends were felled by machine gun fire. He ran for an hour, exhausted, only to come upon a river that seemed 100 yards wide. He waded across it as American mortar shells passed over their heads. The Battle of the Bulge was a desperate, brutal fight for survival, a testament to the overwhelming nature of late-war combat and the psychological impact on new soldiers. Charlie Haug's journey through the Battle of the Bulge was a harrowing odyssey of survival, punctuated by moments of grim reality and desperate luck. His wounded comrades, one shot in the neck another in the gluteus muscles, were stark reminders of the constant peril. Lieutenant Mayor Goldstein, nursing earlier wounds in both legs, epitomized the resilience of leadership under fire. In a strange twist of fate, Hogue accidentally wandered into an 82nd Airborne Division area in a town occupied by nearly 1,000 paratroopers. What could have been a deadly error became a surprising surrender and rescue. The 112th Infantry Regiment, reconstituted with an influx of replacements, was sent back to the front lines on January 5, 1945. The new men, often trigger-happy, led to friendly fire incidents, highlighting the chaos and inexperience inherent in rapidly rebuilt units. Houck participated in the attack on Spino, Belgium, engaging in house-to-house fighting and taking 200 German prisoners. This was his last combat action in the Bulge. By March 1st, the prolonged exposure to extreme cold, his feet, frozen, thawed, then refrozen, caused a debilitating infection. He was medically evacuated, preventing him from joining the Colmar offensive and marking the end of his direct combat role. Charlie Houck returned to his hometown of Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. He married June Edebo on August 4, 1947, and raised 5 children. He became president of First Security Bank in 1968, retired in 1990, and passed away on May 4, 2017, at the age of 94. His story, like so many, demonstrates the immense personal cost of war, from physical wounds and psychological trauma to the disruption of personal lives and post-war adjustment. As the war in Europe drew to a close, the focus shifted to the moral complexities and arbitrary nature of conflict. Tom Stafford, born in rural Virginia in 1923, grew up on a family farm raising hogs, cattle, chickens, tobacco, and corn. He witnessed New Deal programs like the CCC, TVA, and WPA, recalling with wry humor the inefficiency of some make-work projects, implicitly debunking the myth of uniform governmental efficiency. After working a year for Brown and Williamson, he attended Virginia Tech in September 1942, joining the Army ROTC and Corps of Cadets at the Senior Military College. Drafted in March 1943, he completed basic training at Camp Lee, offered Anzio School a shake-and-bake option due to his age. As an alternative to OCS, he boarded the HMS Empress of Australia, a troop carrier, in November 1943. He found himself at a replacement depot in Lichfield, England, grimly nicknamed Colonel Killian's concentration camp, underscoring the bureaucratic inefficiencies and harsh conditions often faced by new recruits. Volunteering for the 6th Combat Engineer Amphibious Special Assault Brigade, he shifted his career path dramatically. He was billeted with a greengrocer in British Homes. His training included demolitions, obstacle emplacements, and hasty fortifications, a cultural misunderstanding at a dance, with GIs mistaking "God Save the King" for "My Country 'Tis of Thee," nearly led to a fight with British troops, highlighting the friction of cultural differences. The disaster of invasion rehearsals at Slapton Sands, costing over 700 Allied casualties before D-Day, was a grim premonition. D-Day itself, originally scheduled for June 4, 1944, was postponed due to rough channel conditions, with landfall finally on June 6. Tom's British variant landing craft, crewed by U.S. Coast Guardsmen, was intended for Omaha Beach at a draw called Les Moulins. But a coxswain's decision to divert their landing near Vierville-sur-Mer, due to heavy machine gun fire at Les Moulins, saved Stafford's platoon from immediate slaughter. Wading approximately 100 yards through the surf, he encountered a fallen Ranger captain surprised by his presence at Omaha. He observed a lone American 105 howitzer firing at an impossible rate, 10 to 15 rounds a minute. His unit was tasked to support the 29th Division. After D-Day, Stafford was reassigned to guard German POWs for 3 weeks, a duty so unappealing that he sought reassignment to regular combat. He joined the 87th Infantry Division as a rifleman in December 1944, arriving in Luxembourg City during the Battle of the Bulge. In January 1945, he joined L Company 347th Infantry Regiment. Due to casualties, including the lieutenant and platoon sergeant, Tom became acting platoon leader, thrust into command at a young age. They manned outposts from Bastogne to Saint, Bith, and into Belgium, They crossed the Rhine River at Königsstuhl, encountering fierce resistance at Braubach, overlooking Marksburg Castle, which the Germans used as an observation post. He captured 2 Germans who revealed their Como line, which was promptly cut. In Bad Ems, he captured a German general in civilian attire. His unit liberated a POW camp holding American and British prisoners. They travelled on autobahns, encountering resistance at Saalfeld. They fought the Volkssturm elderly men and 14 to 15-year-old boys, armed with Panzerfausts, illustrating the desperation of the German war effort. L Company, with the support of 2 Sherman tanks, led the attack on Plauen. They preserved an ancient stone arch bridge over the Elster River, a structure built 250 years before Columbus, highlighting the often unforeseen strategic importance of objects. The true horror of the Nazi regime was laid bare when Stafford was ordered to witness the Buchenwald concentration camp, describing stacked bodies. German civilians from Weimar were also ordered into Buchenwald, forced to confront the atrocities committed in their name. This experience, a visceral confrontation with the crimes against humanity, underscores the profound moral stakes of the war. Mid-April 1945, Tom Stafford's regiment was ordered to halt and wait for the Russians, a stark acknowledgement of the Soviet advance on the Eastern Front. The Red Army had reclaimed territory from Moscow to Stalingrad, pushing through Ukraine, Belarus, and Poland, exerting immense pressure on German forces. For Tom's unit, the fighting continued even amidst the cessation of grand campaigns. After the 1st of May, his unit was ordered to move out again. News of Adolf Hitler's suicide and the subsequent announcement of VE Day arrived right after the 1st of May, marking the official end of hostilities in Europe. Tom chronicled these surreal days in a letter to his father, dated May 12, 1945. In Czechoslovakia, he managed to trade German Reichsmarks for beer. He even claimed that 2 complete German infantry divisions had surrendered to him, a testament to the chaotic and often informal nature of the war's final days. The US military's adjusted service rating score, a points system, dictated troop demobilization, requiring at least 85 points earned through active duty, combat days, and decorations. This system created a conflict between the desire for home and the duty to one's unit. When offered a battlefield commission, which usually required the existing lieutenant to be killed or permanently evacuated, Tom Stafford famously refused to leave his men. "Hell, I'm not going to leave these guys," he declared. General McKee, the assistant division commander, eventually pinned his commission bars, acknowledging Tom's unwavering leadership. The end of war in Europe was a beginning for others. Tom's division was the first pulled from Europe for the planned invasion of Honshu. They returned to the US in July for a 30-day leave and re-outfitting at Fort Benning. By October 1945, his division was deactivated. His post-war path led him to serve as aide-de-camp to General Philip Gallagher, commanding general of the 25th Infantry Combat Team. In occupied Germany, he witnessed the trials at Nuremberg and the partition of Germany into East and West, laying the groundwork for the nascent tensions of the Cold War. Promoted to captain in 1950, he commanded a rifle company securing the German-Czechoslovakian border. He completed 2 tours in Korea, in 1953 as a civil affairs officer and again in 1960-61. Tom Stafford retired as a major in 1963 after 20 years of service, and finally in 1987. His personal decisions regarding career paths and reintegration into civilian life reflected the lasting impact of his wartime experiences. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the war raged on with unimaginable fury. Okinawa, located 340 miles south of mainland Japan, was deemed strategically vital for an invasion of the Japanese mainland. The Japanese had committed 117,000 troops to its defense. This was the crucible for Peter Worth. At just 17, Peter enlisted in January 1944 from Iowa. His rigorous training on Guadalcanal included dehydration exercises and river crossings, aiming to prepare Marines for the extreme realities of combat. On April 1, 1945, Peter Worth and his fellow Marines stormed the beaches of Okinawa. Initial resistance on the beach was light, but as they pushed south, they met tough, ferocious Japanese defenses. On June 5, 1945, Peter Worth distinguished himself with extraordinary heroism. Facing entrenched machine gun nests, he charged forward, transforming a seemingly hopeless situation into a decisive action. His bravery earned him the Navy Cross, but the island would claim its toll. He was shot in the right shoulder, the bullet exiting through his back by a Japanese soldier on a boulder. Evacuated to Guam, he learned of VJ Day. There, Peter remained on active duty until 1946. After the war, he became a machinist, owning his own machine shop for 2 decades. He married Berthana Bergsrud in 1951, raised 4 children, retired in 1988, and passed away on December 3, 2015. The narratives of Tom Stafford and Peter Worth reveal the profound moral and personal complexities faced by soldiers as the war concluded, from the arbitrary nature of conflict to the enduring human need for connection and purpose beyond the battlefield. Their stories challenge the idea of a clean, decisive end to war. For many, the fight for personal meaning and a return to normalcy was just beginning.